I was walking around by myself. I felt comfortable walking around by myself even late at night. And that's something I don't even feel at home. And the closer we got to Erfurt, it was like, I'm going home. Part of me was thinking, I'm actually going home here. I just love traveling solo because I can do what I want when I want. I'm not having to be at someone else's timetable. It's liberating to travel by yourself.
Hey guys, it's Tristan here for the Backpackers Society. Welcome to the show. Whether it's your first time here or you're back from war, thanks for stopping by and hanging out, and I hope you'll be inspired by travel today. Have you ever felt nervous about what it takes to travel solo, or ever wondered if you can ever feel at home at another place around the world? If so, stick around because my guest and I will talk exactly about that, what it means to actually travel solo confidently, and how maybe there's a place out there that you can connect with on a deeper level, even more so than where you are currently. My guest today was born in Lincoln, England, and now is currently based in Scotland. She's a lover of aviation, Formula One, history, and languages. My guest today is Ayrton. And in our interview, Ayrton and we talk about her travels, gaining confidence while traveling solo. We speak a little bit on learning some basic phrases in different languages to better assimilate in those areas. And then, of course, we talk on her visit to Erfurt, Germany, which she actually has some family ties to, and how it deeply connected with her during her time there. On the back end of the interview, I'll talk a little bit more on those subjects, traveling with confidence and what it means to connect deeply with another place. But for now, let's roll into our interview with Ayrton. Have you ever done a podcast before? Or is this
I
sort of
actually
the first
work
time
on
for
a
you?
podcast.
Actually, yes. I did some research and I saw some. I think it looked like a convention. I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was something,
Yeah,
a
it
work
was
related thing.
a
But
podcast convention in Dallas last year.
aha, so that's okay. Got you. So that was the reason you came over to Dallas, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect. Well, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that because obviously you mentioned that in the notes. But yeah, let's get into it. Of course, as I mentioned in the email, if you have any questions for me as we go, please feel free. Again, it is an interview, but it wanted to be a conversation as well. So definitely jump in if you have anything. But
Okay.
with that, if you're ready, so
Yeah.
of course we ask a few questions to get to know you as a person. From there, we'll get into some of the insight of the cities that you mentioned, and then after that, we'll talk a bit more about you as a traveler, and then of course at the end, get into your topic today. Okay,
Okay.
awesome. So let's get into it. First question. So you described yourself as a massive aviation geek.
Yes.
I'm curious to know. Is the Newark Air Museum the best you've seen as far as what they have on Airbus? Yes. Is the Newark Air Museum the best you've seen as far as what they have on display? And also, where did the fascination for aviation come from? Like, is it the plane themselves? Is it the history behind them, or something else entirely?
Uh, how I got into aviation is my granddad was a mechanic in the RAF during the Second World War. But what really got me into it was when I was young, there was a major plane crash about an hour from where I lived.
Mm.
And for me, it was just the fascination of like what caused it. How could people survive something like that? So I have ADHD, and one of my hyper focuses is plane crashes and the causes. So I can just sit and like this afternoon, all I've done is watch air crash investigations, or I think it's called Mayday in America.
Mm. So, how you mentioned there was a crash? How old were you at the time? If you
Um,
remember.
I think I must have been about 6.
Hmm. And I guess that, as you said, that sort of started the fascination from there, and then you kind of got hooked on it. Or, well, you mentioned your grandfather. You said as well.
Yeah, he, like I said, he was a mechanic in the RAF during the Second World War, and he spent most of his time stationed out in Egypt fixing a lot of the aircraft.
Oh, awesome. So I'm guessing maybe then as well with him having that background, maybe like did he ever was it him more just kind of talking about it? Did he ever get to show you certain things, even in a picture by chance, or?
Growing up, he always had like models of Spitfires, Lancasters, Mosquitoes, and pictures of them all around his flat. And he took some of them with him when he went into the nursing home. But he never really talked about his service until after he had his stroke.
Mm, gotcha. So definitely makes sense then how you kind of got into that fascination, especially with your family being involved in it as well. Cool.
Yeah.
So next question. So you seem to be into languages. You have about a 700-day streak I saw on Duolingo, which shows obviously your love for languages. So with skills in Italian, Spanish, and German, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm curious what pulled you into languages in the first place, and those in particular, and what when it comes to language and learning languages in general, for you, is it more about just understanding those cultures, or just a love for education and personal development in general?
I try to learn some of the language of the country I'm going to visit. So at least that way I can be polite in their language. I can ask for things. I can say thank you. And because I have food allergies as well, it's also important that I can read the menu
Mm,
because I've made that
for
mistake
sure.
before. But with
Mm,
Spanish and Italian, I just always loved the language. And I really wanted to learn before I went to Rome. Spanish, it's very similar to Italian, and I sometimes get the two of them mixed up.
mhm,
And with German, my biological family actually have German ancestry.
mm.
So I wanted to learn German for that, and also before I travelled to Germany a couple of years ago.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually saw as well. You have I think it was Hamilton, a tattoo related to that in
Yes,
German.
yes.
So yeah, so I saw that as well, and so obviously there's a love for theater there, which we'll kind of touch on a bit later. But um, it makes sense considering that uh, your background is German, that you would have a German tattoo, because it could have been one thing if you just really love the language, but it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I actually had
Um,
that done when I was
so
in
with
Germany.
oh, you had it done in Germany.
Yeah,
Awesome. Was that in Erfurt, or where
yes, it was
exactly?
an effort.
Awesome. With that as well, especially considering again your family, it's in your background, because you mentioned you like the learning languages before you actually go to a country. Were you around German or any other languages as a child or younger, or did it really start in general as you started to travel more? If that makes sense.
I only grew up with knowing English until I went to high school and started learning French. And I really enjoyed learning French. And I wanted to take a second language, but I got told I couldn't because my English skills weren't good enough.
Hmm.
But after I left school, I went to college and I did qualifications in Spanish and Italian at college.
Hmm.
And then before I went to Germany, I started doing Duolingo. And I just took it from
Awesome.
there.
Very good. I actually took French myself in high school, even a little bit before that. So it's pretty cool. Awesome. Okay, so next question then. Speaking on education, I saw again in my research, I saw you quoted or were quoted in a blog, or maybe wrote in a blog for Open University, which you have some degrees in and working on a degree currently now, where you said to all of you thinking you're not intelligent enough or you lack the high school qualifications for university study, that you couldn't be further from the truth. So, as much as you'd like to go into it, when you think about your own journey, what does education truly mean to you?
I've always had this lifelong love of learning, and unfortunately, I went all through my school life having a multitude of undiagnosed learning difficulties. So I left school at 16 with no qualifications. And a main dream of mine was to get a degree in psychology. But all my teachers were like, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. You'll never be able to do it. But it was after I got diagnosed with dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia that I started getting help. And because of that, I got support put in place with the Open University. And 4 years ago, I got my degree in psychology.
Yes, that's awesome. I mean, it shows grit and just determination. I don't know if it was as much as well, maybe just to prove the doubters wrong, but more so just wanting to prove yourself right. But I think it's amazing that you stuck to your goals and made it happen. And even like you said, you have a degree in psychology, and I believe you're working on one in history, correct?
Yes, I'm set to graduate with that this year.
Awesome. Early congratulations. Obviously, congratulations for the psychology degree as well. Amazing. All right. So then for our last question with this part, so as much as a fan as you seem to be with aviation, it seems you're also a fan of Formula One. Is that correct?
Yes, it is very correct.
Awesome. So I see you have books authored by Zach Brown and Ted Kravitz, for example, for any Formula One fans who may be familiar with them. I'm curious obviously what got you into it. Like, was there a specific driver or team that sort of got you hooked, or did you have some sort of ritual watching Formula One races as a kid, or was it just something you kind of fell into?
Growing up, my dad and my brother used to watch it, but I never really paid any attention. But it was the European Grand Prix 1993, which was won by Ayrton Senna, who I'm named after.
Oh wow.
Who I chose to be named after, much to my parents' annoyance. But even then, I didn't really get into it until 97, and I've been watching it ever since.
That's awesome, especially obviously considering that you're named after after someone in that sport. Um, who would maybe that's your favorite favorite driver, or who would you say that is at this point?
Um, from the 80s and early 90s, it's definitely Senna, but more recently, it's Max Verstappen.
Awesome. And I'm just curious now, have you been able to see a race in person as well?
Yes, I've been to quite a few races.
Fantastic. I've actually so I've not seen a race, but I've been to Monaco. Just I used to work on cruise ships and everything, so we were docked there one day, and I didn't even realize at the time, but we were just walking through, and then realized we were actually on the track because it kind of just goes through
Yeah,
the city and area if you're familiar with there. So that was pretty cool. Like, because again, got off, didn't really, you know that they have the races there, but didn't think you'd be literally right there. So it's kind of awesome to see at the time. Awesome. All right. So with that, of course, we're going to transition, but is there anything else you'd like to add, or are you ready to move on?
yeah, I didn't answer about Newark Air Museum.
Ah, sure. Yes.
So, Newark Air Museum is great for like the history of military aircraft. It doesn't have anything that's commercial based because it's actually built on the site of an old World War II Air Force base.
Hmm.
For me, one of the best air museums I've been to would have to be the National Museum of Flight, which is near Edinburgh. Because they have hundreds of aircraft, including Concorde.
Hmm.
So I've actually had a chance to be on board a Concorde, even if it is parked in an airplane hangar.
And talk a little bit more about that. Is it like a very larger plane, kind of maybe old school style, or?
Concorde is the only commercial delta wing aircraft which was able to achieve supersonic speed. It could do London to New York in
Hmm.
3.5 hours.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, but after there was a bad crash with it in 2001, and after that, it was just
Hmm.
deemed to be too expensive to continue being put in service.
Hmm. So then it was in service for a while, then, correct?
It was
Or they were planning towards it in?
it had been flying since the 1970s,
Hmm.
and they did try to bring it back after the major crash in Paris, but it was with fuel costs and everything else, it was just working out to be too expensive.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, awesome. Hopefully, in down the line, I'm sure you'll get to see more aviation museums, whether it be here in the States if you ever come back, or wherever it may be.
I
But
did go
very
to
cool.
the one in Dallas.
Which one is? Do you remember the name of that one?
Frontiers of Flight.
Frontiers of Flight. Not related to. I assume it's not related to the Frontier Airlines or anything like that. But
No,
no, very cool. What was it like there?
it was actually pretty cool. They had a Blue Angel in there. They had the flying pancake, which I'd never seen before.
Hmm.
And they also had quite a lot of history on Bessie Coleman, which I thought was interesting.
What stood out with Betsy?
Bessie was the first African American and Native American woman to gain her pilot's license. But
Hmm.
obviously, at the time, she wasn't allowed to get it in America, so she had to learn French and live in France for several months until she got her license. And then she came back to America and would only compete in air shows if all the audiences weren't segregated.
Hmm. Wow. And you say it's all just in Dallas, right? I'm actually here in San Antonio, so not too far from my area. I should check it out sometime for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So with that, let's transition now into some local insight. So today we're going to cover, and correct me if I say this wrong, but Dunfermline, which is
Dunfermline.
where you've lived for nearly Dunferm. Say it again.
Dunfermline.
Dunfermline.
Yeah.
So which is where you've lived for nearly 17 years.
Yeah.
And then also after that, or two more after that, we're going to speak a little bit on your hometown as well, Newark-On-Trent. And then, of course, Erfurt, Germany, where you've traveled. How many times was it again? I believe.
It's just the once I've been to Erfurt, but I really, really want to go back.
Gotcha. So you've traveled there recently, and going back to your studies and education, you learned a lot about it before going,
Yeah.
and then obviously experienced there in person. So um, go ahead if you'd like. Obviously, start with Dunfermline, and then build up towards Erfurt, and just talk about obviously your connection to each spot, and then sort of some of the things that you can see and do there.
Okay, so Dunfermline used to be one of the capital cities of Scotland. There is the grave of, I think it's Queen Margaret. There's a really cool abbey that you can visit. There's St. Margaret's Cave. It's where Andrew Carnegie came from, who obviously has like the Carnegie Centre named after him in New York. He was born in Dunfermline. You can go visit his house. There's just a lot of history of Dunfermline that I'm still learning about, even though I've lived here for 17 years. Because I don't think you can ever really learn the full history of where you live, as it's always changing.
Oh no, certainly for sure.
Yeah, just trying to think what else there is. There's also a lot of mining history and stuff in the area. Yeah, it's just trying to think.
No, it's okay. What brought you there as well initially?
I actually met a guy online and I moved up to Scotland to be with him. That didn't work out.
Awesome.
So yeah, he left, I stayed.
And now it's been 17 years. What about
Yeah.
this city then, or the area made you stay?
The countryside. I wake up in the morning and I'm overlooking hills out my bedroom window. It's just a much more quieter, more peaceful way of life than what I was used to. Yeah, it can be quite close knit if you know certain people, but at the same time, people leave you alone. So it's really cool.
Would you say with that? Because I think just briefly looking at it, I know it's a smaller city, maybe 20, 30,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I guess your direct area is it more like a maybe small knit type of town per se, or what is it like in that sense?
Where I live, it is near Dunfermline and it's a small ex mining town. So a lot of the people who have grown up here, they've got a family history of mining. They've got a lot of like still a lot of the old pubs and stuff that are open. Unfortunately, we just lost the old cinema in an arson attack, which was a big shame because that was an
Mm-hmm.
old-fashioned Art Deco building.
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate. Hopefully people were okay. How about maybe some of the food spots and things like that there?
Well, in Scotland, you can't go wrong with a deep fried pizza, which I know people think is weird, but no, they're really nice. There's also like the haggis, which again, a lot of
Mhm.
people won't touch because of what it is, but again, if you don't think about it, it's okay. There's a real
Explain to those who might not. Sorry, explain to those who might not know what haggis is.
haggis is basically the heart, lungs, kidneys, whatever of animals, and it's cooked inside. It used to be cooked inside a sheep's bladder, but now it's done in a different type of casing that is not edible.
Mm. So maybe a little bit off the beaten path haggis. I can't say that I've tried. Maybe I give it a try. I don't know, but but it is. I guess it's more of a Scottish staple then, I suppose, right? Or at least uh,
Yeah,
for Scottish cuisine, that's something it's known for.
yeah. I mean, we've just had Burns Night over here, and our traditional dinner for that is haggis, neeps, and tatties.
Mm, gotcha. And going back to the deep fried pizza, like definitely that's not something I would have thought of when I think of Scottish cuisine. But fair enough.
In Scotland, we deep fry everything.
Not mad at that. Awesome. Um, all right, so let's from there. You mentioned your hometown, of course, Newark-on-Trent. Talk about a little bit. Well, you kind of already said it was a bit busier compared to where you are now. But go ahead and talk about a bit with there and same sort of deal. Some of the
Okay.
food, things to do.
Well, Newark-on-Trent is a old medieval town. It's actually mentioned in the Domesday Scrolls or Doomsday Book, whatever it's called. I can't remember. Bad for history student, I know. We have a castle there, and one of the kings of England actually died in that castle. He died from dysentery. We have a lot of history from the English Civil War. We still have buildings that have the cannonball damage from that. We have a lot of the
Hmm.
old Tudor buildings. The marketplace is still in existence, even though it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. And as you mentioned earlier, we do have the Air Museum, which is on the outskirts of town.
Got you. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Are there many people, as far as travelers, who come through to Newark-on-Trent, or is it known for that at all?
We do get some people who visit for tourism, but I wouldn't call it a major touristy place.
Hmm.
Unless you're like either a major history buff or you're into Warhammer, because it was created in Newark-on-Trent.
Okay. Um, Anything else you'd like to add with Newark-on-Trent?
It's just one of these places that is so ingrained into English history. I mean, the town itself was held under siege 3 times during the English Civil War, and it got to the stage the townspeople were minting their own coins in order to provide for themselves. And Charles II was sorry. King Charles II was actually caught and arrested not that far away from Newark-on-Trent either.
Hmm. So actually, quite a lot of history, as you mentioned, more than maybe we know. Is that something you kind of would learn uh, in general, learn in school, or that's just more sort of from your research and being from there, of course?
I learnt some of it at school. One of my history assignments at school was actually an essay on the history of Newark Castle, which is technically a palace.
Hmm.
But most of it I've learnt just by reading stuff by myself.
Awesome. Let's shift into now the main place you wanted to speak on, as far as Erfurt, Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, Erfurt, Germany is just, I call it a hidden gem
Hmm.
because while there's so much stuff to do there, it doesn't really seem to have a lot of outside tourism. Like people from Germany might go and visit it, but it's not one that's easily travelled to by people outside of Germany. But when I went, I stayed in the Altstadt, which is the old town, and I was actually staying in an Airbnb which overlooked the Kramerbrücke, which is an old medieval bridge, and it's had shops and houses on it ever since I think it's the 11th century. And is also where Martin Luther trained as a monk. He's the guy who started the Reformation. So I went to the monastery where he studied. I went to the cathedral where he preached. It's just one of these places where if you're a history buff, it's just somewhere where you can just go and just immerse yourself deeply with the history.
And even let's go back a little bit. How did you first learn about Erfurt? As you said, like it's not many. I've been to Germany, many times. Never heard of it before. But yeah, how did you first learn about Erfurt, and what kind of really got you to interested into it?
The only reason why I learnt about Erfurt is I did an ancestry DNA test because we've been adopted. I didn't know my true heritage. And it came up that my great grandmother came from a village near Erfurt. So for my 40th birthday, my mum was like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I want to go to Germany."
Awesome. Okay. Had you been to Germany before that at all?
No.
Just curious. Got you. And that brought you there. So now, okay, even with that, from the time that so obviously you said you went for your 40th birthday. When did you initially learn the connection to Erfurt, and kind of like how long did it go from learning that to, okay, let's go?
I'd been planning to go to Germany for a year, and it just so happened it was coming up to my 40th birthday. So my family were like, "Okay, we'll give you money to go to Germany." I'm like, "Thank you."
Free trip, yes. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Continue if you may, if there's more as far as things to see and do, specifics with Erfurt.
Erfurt also has a really unfortunate history in the sense that there's a factory there called Topfenson, and it's where the ventilation system for Auschwitz was built, and it's also where all the crematoria for the death camps were built as well. So
Wow.
It does have a really dark history. It's also the home of the world's oldest surviving synagogue, even though it's not used as such because the Jews at the time were blamed for the Black Death. So they were either murdered or ran out of the city.
And again, I assume this is something you learned beforehand going into the city, or even, I don't know, maybe you did as you were there or afterwards.
I knew about the history with the factory before I went, but I didn't know about the synagogue and the history surrounding that until I actually visited it.
And I'm actually surprised, as you said, especially with its link to, the Holocaust and whatnot. Having visited there in Poland, just never heard of that specific connection with that city when it comes to the story there. So interesting how maybe somewhere that's not as well known to the masses, kind of plays a big part in one of the biggest things in history.
Yeah.
So, now, since you've been back, so you've only been there the one time, right? Have you had any plans to go back anytime soon? I know you want to, but
I'm hoping to go to Berlin next year because I've already got this year's holiday sorted. So yeah, Ireland this year, hopefully Berlin next year.
Where to for this upcoming holiday?
Going to be staying in Dublin, but I'm going to be also visiting where my adoptive dad, where his family came from, because there's still the old family farm that's out in County Cavan.
And now, is that, I assume, you've been there before? Or is this sort of a similar situation where you realize the connection. And
I've been to Dublin before, but I've never been to see where my dad's family came from. So that would be a new experience for
gotcha.
me.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's definitely a natural thing to want to connect, but I'm curious, what was that always sort of a thing, and you just kind of did the experience with just effort and learning that connection, did that kind of spark this now, or how long has that kind of been, if that makes sense?
Well, my parents went before COVID, and I missed the opportunity to go with them to see all of this.
Hmm.
And there's actually a couple of friends of mine who I was staying with in Dallas who were like, "We're going to Ireland in October. Do you want to come with us?" I was like, "Yes, please." And they asked if there was anywhere I wanted to visit. And I just said, "Yeah, I'd really like to see where my dad's side of the family come from."
Hmm. Awesome, perfect. So I'll ask you this then. Kind of going back to effort now. Was there? So obviously you're there. You're learning about the city, considering the connection with your family and everything. Was there a moment or anything in particular while you were there, at least that time, that kind of how do I say? When it comes now, think of your family and that connection. Was there any moment there that you feel like kind of made you more connected to your family beyond just being there, if that makes sense? Like,
It was really weird because when I got the train from Frankfurt, I was just chilling out. And the closer we got to Erfurt, it was like, I'm going home. Part of
mm,
me was thinking, I'm actually going home here. And
mm-hmm,
after I got off the tram near to where I was staying, I was looking around and went, yeah, I'm home. And I've never felt that way about a place before. It's really weird.
mm. No, it definitely makes sense. Though. That's really awesome. Maybe even kind of a surreal moment, especially as you said, you never really felt that way about a place before. Very cool. Hopefully, I hope for this upcoming trip when you get to go on you said your dad's or your grandfather's side.
It's my dad's family, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you experience something similar as well. Very cool. I like that. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add with Erfurt or any of the other destinations as well, or would you
With
like to move on?
with Erfurt as well, you're not too far away from another concentration camp, Buchenwald.
Hmm.
And that's not, the buildings and that aren't really there anymore. There's like just the ruins, but there's also the cemetery as well. And
Hmm.
I've never been to Auschwitz, so I can't really compare what it's like. But it is such an eerie feeling when you're
Hmm.
walking around.
Hmm. I'm sure. Is it how big was that? How big was that? Was it a museum or like the?
It was at the actual full site of it, I think. Let me double check.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's the full site of it.
Hmm.
And it had over 280,000 inmates and something like 57,000 died.
That's intense. You mentioned so I mentioned earlier, I guess, spent some time in Poland and kind of to so obviously I haven't been to this one you mentioned, but I also went to Auschwitz, and when you talk about sort of the eerie feeling, I remember after the end of it. Obviously, it's a lot to take in, but at
Yeah.
the end, where uh, the people I was with, we were ready to move on to go back to where we were at, but we were waiting for the bus. Some of our friends had left earlier just because for them it was a bit too much, but it was me and another friend. We stayed through the evening, and we were waiting for this bus to carry on. But so we we're outside of the area, and I'm just sat there, and to me it was surreal because as I sat, it was just like present day. It's like there was literally a laundromat, maybe like from sight from where I'm sitting. But when you think back, obviously years back, this was a place where all this tragic things were happening. So like as I was going through the day, and obviously you're seeing the things, but I think in that moment, just kind of everything reflecting on everything. But now again, considering
laundromat down there, and there's a bus route here. It was kind of, for me, that was kind of a surreal and sort of eerie moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can kind of imagine sort of, that feeling from your end, and what that was about. Okay. So if you like, we can transition now to our next thing, which will be getting to know you more as the traveler. We've kind of covered a little bit of it for sure. But to speak on a little bit as far as your general travels overall, so you've done mostly Europe,
Yeah.
obviously the places we mentioned. Um, so Erfurt, of course, you've been to Rome as well, Italy, Dublin, which you mentioned, and spent a little bit of time in Paris as well. And then as far as the U.S., you already mentioned earlier, you came to Dallas for that podcast convention and a little bit of exploration as well. How long did you stay in Dallas, by the way, for that trip?
I was in Dallas for a week.
A week. Gotcha. So overall, that's where you've been, and obviously you have some more trips lined up as well. But as far as a question, and you kind of answered it some a little bit, but you mentioned in general that you really like to study the areas before visiting, right? So overall, what's kind of the purpose for that? I know you mentioned wanting to learn the language and whatnot to kind of use it a bit, but is it more also about understanding the history of a place, or for you does it give the trip more sense of purpose for you?
For me, it gives the trip a greater sense of purpose, and also I can look through and see if there's anywhere specifically I want to go visit. It's like with Erfurt, I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to go visit the monastery where Martin Luther studied because I'd studied that much about the Reformation during my history degree. It just made sense to go out and see it while I was there. And Rome again, learning the history, wanting to know what I really wanted to go see. Some of that didn't pan out, but I ended up spending a really interesting day with the Vatican and San Pietro, which is amazing to see in person. It's just, like I say, I just love learning, and it helps me understand places a lot better.
100%. So now I'm curious with that kind of follow up question with that one, because obviously you mentioned with the studies that you've done, obviously it sort of sets up the places that you would potentially want, or the site specifically that you potentially want to see once you're at a place. Um, but with that, let's think of it the opposite. To what extent do you feel like you need to study or do study or prep for a trip, if that makes sense?
I think again it comes down to the ADHD side of things where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to this place. I need to learn everything I can. I have to learn everything I
Hmm.
can. And sometimes it does get to the point where I've overloaded myself with so much information. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, I know where I don't want to go, but I know where I do want to go.
Hmm.
So I think it just helps balance things out for me.
I'm curious as well now, and maybe as far as like a week in Dallas, especially when you had a convention you were going to, different situation. But let's say you have the time to kind of you have extra time to explore wherever you're exploring. As far as your preparation beforehand, are you kind of more uh, not necessarily building an itinerary, but as you said, you want to see what you want to see, and then you see those things, or do you as well, maybe sometimes when you're at a place you learn about something through others if you're around others, and then maybe if it interests you, of course, take the time to see those things as well, if that makes sense.
When I was in Erfurt, I learnt about the synagogue originally by doing a walking tour of the city. And they
Hmm.
were taking you around different places and saying, this is where this is where this is. And as I was walking around, I'm like, hang on, my family were Jewish. So maybe I should go to the synagogue. So that was, like I said, that helped me learn more about the history of the Jewish people in that area as well.
Hmm.
And there was like also in Erfurt, there were all these different statues of children's TV characters.
Hmm.
And on the Sunday morning when everything was shut, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk and see how many I can find.
It's pretty cool. Very random. So, like, was there any? I mean, I guess maybe just for fun, these statues, or was there any real significance? Did you learn anything from that? More so about that?
There's a TV studio in Erfurt which does do children's TV shows, and a lot of the characters are from that TV studio.
Got you. That makes sense. Any? Well, I don't know if maybe to the masses, but well, maybe any characters that or shows that might be well known, at least maybe amongst Germans, or
Burnt Desperate.
Bern Dasbrid.
Yeah. He's a
I'll have
depressed
to look
loaf of
it up.
bread.
I'm not. Okay, so these are okay. Bern Dasbrid. I'll have
Yeah.
to look it up. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. I guess yeah. The city must be well known for its animation studio then.
Yeah. I mean, Bernd has cult following amongst the adults in Germany, even though he is a children's TV character.
Hmm.
And that was one of
I'll
my
have to ask.
favorite.
I bet
That was one of
one
my
of your favorite
souvenirs
ones.
I bought back. I bought back a little cuddly Burnt Desperate, and he goes everywhere with me now.
Ah, that's awesome. I have a good German friend. I'll have to ask him if he knows about that character for sure. Cool. Okay, so take me back then to your first solo trip, which I guess maybe was Erfurt potentially. But with that trip, what inspired or led up to that journey, and then where and how long? Where did you go and how long for? I should say.
My first solo trip was actually Rome. I did 5 days in Rome by myself.
Hmm.
And again, that was a place I always wanted to go because I love learning about the ancient Romans and the Roman mythology all through school. And I was working quite a lot at the time, so I was able to save up and travel out there. And it was
Mhm.
just an amazing few days.
Awesome. And I know you said you always wanted to go, but at the time, did you kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily spur of the moment, but did you plan out a while beforehand for that trip, or?
It was actually a offer that came up in the local newspaper
Hmm.
for a trip, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go on that.
Very good. Okay, so Rome, and I'm curious, like, did you for that trip in particular, did you stay in like hotel hostels? What was that like?
It was a hotel in the centre, well, just on the outskirts of the centre of Rome. It was
Hmm.
really weird because you had all this beautiful architecture, then all of a sudden you see these giant rats running around the streets. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rome is an interesting place for sure. I've been able to go in the past quite a few times actually, but no, it's a very fun place. Been a while since I last been, but was it hopefully everything you expected?
It was so much more than what I expected. And I think the fact as well that
Hmm.
I wasn't afraid to walk around wearing my AS Roma shirt, even though it's like, because in Rome you have the Roma team and you have the Lazio soccer team, and it's always either or. I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, I'm going to wear my Roma shirt.
No love lost, but glad you're all right. All right, awesome, awesome. So Rome was the first one, your first trip. Um, After that, when was the next trip? Like, did that kind of get you hooked as far as the solo, or? And I guess this is kind of transitioning us into our main topic, which is confidence while traveling solo. But yeah, with when was the next trip after that? Did that kind of sort of inspire the idea of traveling solo?
I mean, Paris I did as college trips. So I wasn't with
Mm,
family, I was with a group of friends from college.
sure.
And that was just a great time. Rome, obviously, you like have to be careful of like what you're doing, not trying to have many valuables and stuff on display because Rome is bad for pickpocketing and things like that.
Sure.
But I was like, if I can survive by myself in Rome, wearing a Roma shirt and not get into any trouble, It should be all right. But then, unfortunately, my health took a downturn and I had to leave my job. And then I moved up to Scotland. So I wasn't able to travel again until I went to Germany 2 years ago.
Gotcha. And obviously sorry about that, of course, but glad to see you're in better health. When I won't ask what age, but I guess what year was that was that first trip to Rome?
I think it was 2017.
Okay, got you. No, awesome. Uh,
Oh no,
so
no,
let's kind of then
it would have been 2007. 2007, yeah.
2000, 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. And I just finished, well, 1 year out of high school. Anyway, uh, let's fully transition then into the main topic again, which is traveling confidently while doing it solo. So with that, when you think about confidence while traveling solo, for you, is it more about trusting yourself or kind of trusting the environment and the people around you?
I think you have to be able to trust yourself to know what it is you're doing, and also to have, to a certain extent, trust in your environment and the people around you. Because you can never really fully trust a group of strangers because you don't know their behaviours or how they're going to react to you.
Certainly. Was there anything on any of those solo trips, even with the groups as well? I know you mentioned Paris with the school groups and whatnot. Um, were there any particular stories that kind of can show an example of those two factors you mentioned?
When I was in Rome, in the busy areas, I always felt slightly on edge, like I had to be watching everyone around me, because being a solo female person, it's, you can be quite wary. But when I was in Germany, it was completely opposite. I was walking around by myself. I felt comfortable walking around by myself even late at night. And that's something I
Mm-hmm.
don't even feel at home. It's just like a
Mm-hmm.
whole different culture in Germany. And I think that's part of the reason why I felt more at home there as well.
Mm. Got you. Were there any for you, since you brought up the idea of traveling solo as a female? Were there any? I'm sure probably before doing that first trip, any thoughts or conceptions that you had that after doing the trip, I suppose, or maybe the first few solo trips, realized that there were some misconceptions. If that makes sense.
I think a misconception is that a woman won't be safe traveling by herself. There's always going to be something go wrong somewhere that's going to put her in danger. But touch wood, that has never happened to me. It's, I just love traveling solo because I can do what I want when I want. I'm not having to be at someone else's timetable. It's just, it's liberating to travel by yourself.
100%. As far as a solo travel, 100% liberating. Totally agree. Um, Tell me, I guess, yeah, share a bit more about sort of maybe the ups and some of the downs that you've had in some of the travels you've had so far solo.
Uh, some of the issues I have is like people, with me growing up in the UK, there's a misconception that we're all ignorant, we don't want to learn languages, we think the world caters to us. And I've actually had somebody insulting me in Spanish behind my back. So I turned around and gave him even worse than what he was giving me, which shut him up. And that's a really good advantage to learning languages as well. You get to insult people. And
And real quick, where was this at the time? Where were you when this happened?
oddly enough, this was actually when I was in London.
Ah, That's-
So someone was trying to
that's
be
just-
smart with me in London. I'm like, hey.
uh,
And but also as well in Italy, somebody in this tour group had a problem. She didn't speak Italian. The guy didn't speak English, so I was able to explain to each other what the problems was and how to resolve it.
Mhm.
And it's just some of the things are just crazy.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, again, obviously, we talked about your language skills. So I know you said wanting to know more, or wanting to know at least to say hello, thank you. But clearly, it seems like you have solid solid commands of the languages you know, which is great.
I actually got somebody into trouble in a Spanish class because we were doing a official assessment, and the guy asked me, what would you say if you thought something was too expensive? I mistakenly taught him something which was a very bad word, and I got him into trouble, and I got me into trouble for doing it, and it is still on his recorded official assessment.
Oof. Well, I guess the real question is if you knew it was a bad word,
In my
or maybe
defense,
it just kind of
I didn't know it was a bad word because the book I was using, it just gave as a translation a general expression of annoyance.
Gotcha. Lost in translation. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. To be fair, I growing up, I was on the school that I went to, high school. Very mixed as far as the people and everything. But I played football, soccer, and a lot of the guys on there Hispanic background. But you can probably imagine as a team playing with some of those guys and just joking around or whatever. I learned a few Spanish phrases that probably shouldn't say. So
Yeah.
I can understand.
Yeah, it was like when David Beckham signed for Real Madrid and he got sent off for insulting the referee. I was like, I know exactly what he said to the referee because I know what that phrase means.
Awesome. Let's see. So you kind of well, actually, let's think on the languages a bit more. So what, and it might be quite obvious, but what advantages with knowing the languages, since you mentioned obviously being able to understand the locals there, but even helping out other people sort of connect, what sort of I guess advantages or a positive has that being able to have that brought to you, if that makes sense?
People do tend to treat you differently if you make an effort to speak their language. They seem to be a lot more friendly and more approachable. But again, I don't know if that's because I grew up in England and a lot of places don't like the English. I can say that because the English don't like the English at the minute. And yeah, people do seem to be more like willing to help you, and if you say something wrong, they'll help you with your pronunciation, or they tell you the local way of saying things and not the grammatically correct way of saying things. So yeah, you do get treated differently.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. I guess maybe sometimes not that the locals there might have their guard up, but it definitely kind of warms them up very much more so. Just from my experience, I mentioned again knowing some French and being able to use that in some places, things like that. So definitely makes sense. Okay, you kind of mentioned something with this, but was there ever a moment where you felt nervous or maybe questioned your decision to travel alone? And if so, how did you move through that? Get through that?
There's been quite a few times because every time I go to Paris, I get food poisoning. No matter what I
Hmm.
eat, it can be something I eat here at home and I still get food poisoning from it.
Hmm.
So that made me question why I was traveling quite a few times. And also, like I said, when I was in Rome and it was in a really crowded area, I did feel really nervous and really on edge. But at the same time, I never questioned my decision to visit Rome.
Got you. And the food thing, that's unfortunate. So you said it's something specific you eat, or it just happens to happen in Paris?
Every time I go to France, I get food poisoning, no matter what I eat. it's just,
Interesting.
yeah, it's just one of them things.
Well, I guess sometimes, depending on where you are, sometimes it takes an adjustment to get for the cuisine or whatnot. But hopefully at some point you'll be able to get over there and get over that. But yeah, it's. I remember. I mean, luckily, like, touch wood, as you said, like I haven't had any negative experiences with some of the places that I've traveled to with when it comes to food. But India was a little bit different for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
India's very different.
Um, yeah, the now the food and everything was great, but I think I was there for a month, and literally every week, a few days from each week, there was some time where it wasn't too great. So, so I can understand. But
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, Magnus, come on.
look at that, that's funny.
Come on.
Just saying hello.
Yeah, he likes to do that. Hmm.
All right. So as far as obviously with solo travel, do you feel or how do you feel it sort of changed how you see yourself? Um, Obviously, you can say that outside of travel as well, but how do you feel solo travel has changed your thought of yourself?
It's changed me because I've learned how to feel more confident in new and unfamiliar environments. I've had to learn how to adapt to these new environments by myself. I've not had people there to hold my hands to do it. And like I said,
Hmm.
Germany, it was a sense of confidence because I felt like I was going home for the first time. I felt like I actually
Yeah,
belonged there.
yeah, which again is an amazing feeling. Let's go into a little bit more. Is there anything particular that you? So let's say you're going into a new place, or obviously just based on the places that you've been. Um, is there anything in particular that you do to kind of help you feel confident once you're there? Like, is there a moment that you can kind of sense it, and anything in particular, or talk about that a little bit if you're able.
When I first get to a new place, what I tend to do is just dump my luggage and go for a walk and just walk around the local area, see what there is, find out where you go for food, find out where the cheap beer is, and go where the locals go.
Yeah,
That's something I learnt in Rome. You don't go where the tourists go because they're a rip-off. If you go where the locals go, you get better food and cheaper.
100%. For anyone listening, that's pretty much anywhere. Follow that advice for sure. Go where the locals go. Um, no, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And I guess as well, obviously the preparation that you do specifically beforehand, I'm sure helps with your confidence as well. Correct?
To a certain point, yeah, it's like I know where I want to go, but I won't always necessarily know how to get there in advance. So, like when I'm walking around, I'm seeing what the local transport's like. Erfurt, I was really lucky because there's an amazing tram system that gets you all around the city. But the Sunday, I actually walked pretty much the entire city, just doing these children's statue hunts, and I learned more about where different places were. I've finally figured out where to get spaghetti ice because I really wanted to try that. And yeah, just those few hours wandering around the city looking for daft statues turned into this amazing scavenger hunt.
No, that's awesome. Did you say spaghetti ice? I'm sorry.
Yeah, spaghetti ice. It's
What
um
can you say?
it's ice cream done as spaghetti.
Okay,
It
okay.
it's
Got you. So you got the noodle form. Okay.
yeah, and it's one I got was strawberry and white chocolate, so it had like strawberry sauce and white chocolate bits and stuff on it. It was really, really nice.
Ah, okay. That definitely sounds much better than where my head went for the second way. Both are great. Both are great individually, but I wasn't sure about that mix initially. But that makes sense. Now that you mention it, I think I've seen maybe something like that, or heard the concept like that before. Okay, cool. Yeah, much better than what I thought initially. All right, awesome. With when it comes to then confidence and traveling solo, is there anything else you like to add with that?
if you want to go somewhere by yourself, just don't be afraid. Don't let it hold you back. It's a huge world out there, and you're not going to explore it stuck at home thinking about what you could do. Just do it.
100%. And actually, since you brought it up, that's a good thing. Was there anything? Did you maybe have any moment like that where there was a sense of something holding you back, or was it really just kind of from the time you decided to take that first trip, you were like, "Let's go"?
The only one I had where I was a bit unsure was going to Dallas last year, because I was staying with a group of people who I'd only met 2 of them in person before, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I wasn't sure how I was going to be at the podcast conference, but fortunately everything went well, apart from one tiny mishap with me eating something I shouldn't have done. But yeah, apart from that, everything was great.
Gotcha. And I assume, because I know you said obviously it was a work-related trip, maybe some of the people were colleagues, but again, you didn't necessarily know in person before that.
All of us work for the same organisation.
Gotcha. Cool. That makes sense. And even then, that's like I can't even say all the travels I've done. I haven't really traveled with someone that I didn't necessarily know in person. So I can definitely understand maybe the initial, like, hey, would it be cool? All this, whatever it be. So totally fair thing to think of going into it. But I'm glad obviously it worked out really well.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Awesome. All right. So with that, if there's nothing else you'd like to add with that particular topic, we're actually almost at the end of the interview. But first, of course, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions, just some fun random questions, and then we'll kind of get to 30 seconds for glory. So let's get into those rapid fire questions. Just
Okay.
2 this time, but nice and fun. First question, as far as languages again. What's one word or phrase in another language that you wish could be used or was used more often in English?
Kummerspec.
Kammerspec.
Yeah.
And what does this mean?
The literal translation is grief bacon.
Grief bacon. Okay.
It's the term that Germans use to describe emotional eating.
Okay. And say it one more time.
Kummerspec.
Kammerspec. Grief eating. Got you. Or emotional eating, excuse me.
Yeah. Grief.
Kummerspec.
It's grief bacon, yeah.
Grief bacon. This again, another phrase I'll have to share with my German friend and see if he knows it. I'm sure he probably will. Awesome. Okay. And then now, obviously, you mentioned in your notes pantomime. So when it comes to pantomime, what do you think is the best single trait a newcomer can have to do well at it?
Being outgoing.
Being outgoing.
Yeah.
And real quick, for those who might not know, if you can just briefly explain pantomime, what it entails.
Pantomime is a UK tradition that happens around Christmas every year. It's a retelling of a classic fairy tale, or it can be other stories. Last year I did Treasure Island, and it's done through songs, there's dancing, there's borderline inappropriate humour, which goes over the children's heads, which the adults love. It's just one of these British institutions that we have.
Awesome. I've not been to that side of the pond yet, really. I mean, technically I have, but not on my own time. So at some point, I'm sure I will, and I'll definitely have to check out a show for sure. But it only happens in the holidays, you say, yeah?
Yeah.
Or usually around the holidays.
Yeah, it's only like over Christmas and New Year.
Okay, New Year could work potentially. All right, awesome. So you did Ayrton. We've come to the end of the show, end of the interview. But now the floor is yours for 30 seconds of glory. Share what you have going on, or share some last words of wisdom.
So yeah, as I was saying, I'm now in my final year of my history degree, I'm actually already considering doing a third one in religious education because I am that much of a sadist. I do volunteer for an organisation called Hearts Unite the Globe, which works with people who have congenital heart defects and their families, and I do the social media work for one of the podcasts, Congenital Heart Chronicles. So I have that going on as well.
Awesome. Can you say the name of the first one again?
The organisation is Hearts Unite the Globe.
Hearts Unite the Globes.
Yeah.
And then
Congenital Heart Chronicles is the podcast.
Awesome. Perfect. I'll be sure to drop those in the show notes as well, and people can go check out if they like. All right, Ari, thank you so much for the interview. This has been great. Or not Ari, excuse me, Ayrton.
Yeah.
It's been great. Yeah, I don't know why I said Ari.
I've been called worse.
Thanks again to Ayrton for coming on the show and sharing her tips and stories. If you'd like to support what she's involved in, Hearts Unite the Globe, as well as the podcast she works for, Congenital Heart Chronicles, I'll leave a link in the description or show notes below. So now, as I said at the top of the show, I wanted to touch on a little bit more about traveling confidently as a solo, or just in general, really. And then also moments where maybe you could feel connected on a deeper level to another place. So wherever I can, I'll try to give some practical advice or examples. That way you can use that in your travels as well. But let's start with confidence. I know, Ayrton mentioned about she comes to a place, she drops her things, and she just goes for a walk exploring. I know in a lot of my travels, a lot of times I've done quite similar. So especially if it's somewhere new that I haven't been before, I'll go walk for a little bit. And I wouldn't even say for me, it's more about the confidence thing. It's just about orienting myself a little bit, doing a little bit of exploration before really getting settled and meeting people, depending on the situation and the time I come in. A lot of times it might just be having to wait for a check-in, depending on where I'm staying. So instead of maybe sitting in reception, go for a walk a little bit and then come back and kind of get sorted from there. But as far as confidence, things you can do and things I've done in the past, I want to say, especially, and it depends, what situation, if you're staying in a hostel versus a hotel, but I'll speak on hostels for sure. So a lot of hostels, if it's a really good hostel, they should have activities, right? So something going on later that day or at some point in the week. So get involved in some of those activities. So it might be a karaoke, it could be a family dinner, whatever it is. If you put yourself out there and sign up for that, again, especially as a solo traveler, that's sort of a built-in way to be able to interact and meet people. Personally, it's one of the ways that, one of the first things I would try to go about doing if I'm in a new place or, new hostel environment. So one of the easiest ways to meet people if you haven't done so already, especially if you're happen to be more on the shy side as well. Another thing you can do, hostels as well, if they're a good hostel, they usually have a decent common area. So even if they don't necessarily have formal activities going on, if it's a busy place, hopefully, or semi-busy, there might be some others kind of hanging out in the commons area as well. So, and everyone might be doing their own thing, to be fair, reading, whatever it be. But if you see an opportunity where maybe there's a group playing cards, for example, put yourself out there and ask if you can join and sit with them, play the cards, or just have a conversation with others as well. Some places, some hostels, that common area might be in combination with the bar area. You don't necessarily have to drink if you're not a drinker, but that is also a good place to mingle about, especially if, it happens to be a busier time at the hostel, to naturally meet people, or even at the least speak with some of the hostel staff that might be working behind the bar in the area as well. Now, if you're not in a hostel or, more of a guest house, hotel, whatever it be, and kind of going back to what Ayrton talked about before, there's still opportunities to meet locals, right? So if you happen to be doing your own thing, walking around and exploring, and you see an opportunity to potentially speak with a local, even if even if you're not in a place where English might not be the first language or spoken widely, or whatever place you happen to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be English, but if you're somewhere where you don't understand the language, you can still have small interactions, right? I remember, and I don't want to share too long of a story, but I remember I ended up being in Bulgaria once, for an example, and walked into this place, and it was actually this little family, a mom with two young kids. Kids didn't speak English very well. Mom did okay, but I noticed the kids were intrigued by how I looked. So they had this natural curiosity, and even though we weren't able to speak with each other because we didn't understand the languages, we still had a nice interaction, talking with our hands, if you will, so to speak. So find opportunities if you can to interact with the locals. Now, if you're able to understand each other well, you can end up actually getting a lot of information and tips from the locals as far as things to see and do, things to explore. I know in some places as well, I met people who, depending on where they are and how friendly the locals are, the locals actually end up spending time with them and showing them firsthand, taking them around different places and whatnot. To go on that again, I remember I was in a trip to Burma at the time, Myanmar, and I was walking around with my friend at the time, and there was a lady there, a local. She saw us walking, and she just seemed like super excited and kind of flagged us down and wanted to interact with us. Again, she didn't speak a word of English. I didn't know any Burmese. I guess I know a little bit now, but that's another story. But yeah, we had this full-on conversation. She invited us into our home, shared some tea, and things of that nature. So again, if you find locals, find the opportunities to interact with them, and you never know what you can get out of that. So, and really, that said, those are maybe practical ways and examples, but confidence really kind of just grows. Like you might not necessarily, I don't think anyone really, even as confident as you feel you might be, and even if you've traveled quite often, it's still when you're going on that next trip or whatever it is, there still might be moments where that confidence is a bit lower. But I guess as with anything in life, you just kind of have to do it, and you can kind of grow the confidence through that way as well. So, don't wait until you feel like you build enough or have enough built up to do whatever that is in any sense. Go and do it, and it will come from there. You just maybe have to put yourself out there a little bit, or just be open to receive from people, and to be able for you to gain that confidence, if that makes sense. And from the logistics side of things, as far as planning a trip to build confidence, I talked a bit about maybe the language barriers. If that is something that you feel like is a big hurdle, then look into places that whatever your language is, whatever you're good at, that language is available at that place as well. That way, it's just a little bit easier, an easier curve for you to get over or cope with. Another thing as well, you don't necessarily have to do a long 1 month, 2 month trip. Just make a few days, whatever works for you to start. And you don't even have to go super far, to be honest. Like if there's somewhere closer to home, wherever home is, maybe you can start with that, do a smaller trip, and then build up from there as your confidence grows, right? So don't think you have to go off in this, how I did it, I guess, 2 months, which turns to 4 months and all that. You can easily just do a week, a few days, whatever makes sense, at a place that makes sense as well for you. Now, when it comes to connecting with the place, I know obviously Ayrton's situation was a bit more unique in that she had some family ties to there from her ancestry, and going there was definitely a bit more meaningful, which definitely could have added to her being able to get that quick connection once she was there, to be fair. But in general, there's many places, or not I say many places, but many opportunities to be able to connect to a place without you even really expecting to do so. I know for me, just talking on me, for anybody who might know me, they know that place for me would be Thailand for sure, Bangkok specifically. And that just kind of came from going there over time, many times, but honestly, probably that, not necessarily the first time, but that second or third time, there was just a lot of things that happened to happen there. It could have happened anywhere else. but had different moments of growth in different areas, met amazing people. So all those factors kind of played into it for me in that situation, which led to my deeper connection with Thailand as time went. But that can happen to anyone, anywhere, depending on the situation and what's going on. Another example I can share, for a period a few years back, I lived on a small farm in a small town in the U.S., close to Chicago. Ended up staying there for a year, which was the plan going in. But the community, small farm in a small town, maybe 800 people, give or take 100 people. But being in that environment, I still put myself out there to meet the local community. And not that it's a big community, but very easy to meet people. But interacting with them, spending time with some of them, hanging out with some of them. What was interesting to me at that time, my boss working on the farm, he had actually mentioned, and they had programs working with kids and families on the farm to give some context, but he'd actually mentioned, as far as staff that had worked for him in the past and lived in that town, except for one other guy who actually ended up living there, I was the one staff, he said, that really, put himself out there to meet the locals and kind of live how they lived and get to know them and spend time. So that was kind of surprising. It's, that's just kind of something I do if I'm going to be somewhere for a while and get to know the community a little bit. But that's just an example. Maybe not everyone does, depending on where they are, if it makes sense, right? Like, you can't necessarily expect to be able to do that per se if you're only going to be somewhere for a short amount of time. Totally fair. But if you have the opportunity to interact and get to know, again, the locals, the people around, that for sure will help for you to have a deeper connection to wherever it is that you go, right? So that's just one way. Of course, as I kind of mentioned earlier, things can just happen in a certain place that adds to the level of connection that you have with said place. Again, the people you meet, the experiences that you have. And I guess really that's what it comes down to, the experience that you end up having with the place. And if you're able to have similar experiences, or at least experiences that are positively impactful at that place as time goes. So it could happen quick sometimes. It could take a while. Ironically, going back to Thailand, the first time I was there, after leaving Bangkok specifically, I thought you can never see enough of a place, but I didn't actually want to come back to Bangkok because at that time I thought, okay, I still want to travel some more. I felt like I definitely had a good time, but I want to make time for other places. But it made sense to go back and en route to where I was heading to after that. And I think it was that time actually that I really started to see it as a place that was super cool, and the rest is history, as they say. So you never really know what's out there, what a place could end up meaning to you, for you. I actually have a tattoo. I don't know if you can really, wrong one. I don't know if you can really see it here, but just to show, it's actually of a hostel, but just to show the connection. Obviously that played into that connection with Bangkok as a whole. So even this one as well, an old place I used to work, but a whole nother thing, but same idea. but yeah, so, look for opportunities to wrap up with confidence, whether it's you doing the things, going for a walk, if you land somewhere new, kind of getting sorted and comfortable. And then from there, at times maybe putting yourself out there or looking for opportunities where things are happening. So again, if you're at a hostel, joining an activity, joining people, if you see people kind of playing cards or interacting with each other, talking with locals if you can, whether it's, you're out walking on the street and you meet somebody, or even just hostel or hotel staff that maybe can tell you something a little bit different compared to the tourist stuff. And then when it comes to connecting with the place, again, it could happen sort of randomly, but ultimately the experiences that you have there can definitely add to that connection to a place if there isn't something already that makes it a little bit more meaningful. So hopefully you take something from this. If you have any questions, comments, or stories related to any of the topics we talked today, feel free to drop a comment below or send an email, backpackersociety20@gmail.com. Thanks again to Ayrton for joining me today. Thanks again to you for listening, and until next time, be well.